Hello, I'm Srijana, and I'm honored to share this amazing epic with you. The Bhagavad Gita is the story of an ancient battle in the 3D matrix of the mind and a foundation of Hindu philosophy. It reconfirms the laws of nature and timeless techniques for empowerment and ascension. With each chapter of the Gita, the lessons are getting more refined and more specific. Just enjoy and listen with an open mind as if you're hearing a story. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, gods ruled the earth, and all learning took place in the form of stories and sacred verses that people memorized and passed down with each generation. The warrior prince Arjuna and his chariot driver, the god Krishna, gaze over a vast battlefield. Arjuna and his virtuous Pandava brothers are standing at the brink of a huge battle against their evil Kaurava cousins. Thousands of warriors are assembled on both sides to fight to the death. Arjuna is terrified and refuses to fight. The supreme god, Krishna, shows up as his chariot driver and divine guide, explaining the secrets of life, death, and why he should fight. Krishna explains the soul never dies and shows him how to focus the mind to carry out this righteous war without incurring sin or karma. Ultimately, Arjuna accepts his destiny. He fights the war. He and his brothers decimate the enemy and finally ascend to the heavenly realms. Krishna has explained the path of pure action as service without fixating on the results or rewards. He introduces the next technique to ascension through training the mind in meditation. He says the mind can be your best friend, or it can become your enemy. If the mind is untrained, you can never experience happiness, peace, or ascension because the mind is restless and tends to create trouble. We can learn to calm the mind in meditation to attune ourselves to higher virtues. He explains where to sit, how to discipline the mind, how to balance the body, how to eat and sleep regularly. In meditation, he says you must withdraw the mind away from selfish desires and focus on the greatest good. When the mind is restrained from mental activities, likes, dislikes from the material world, you become strong, stable, and balanced in all circumstances. This allows you to live a happy life of divine bliss and leave behind all stress and pain even while you live in a body. He describes meditation as contemplation, a path to achieve inner quiet. It's not a meditation of thoughts or devotional mantra or a prayer or a chant. It's not a visualization. It's not what we sometimes call mindfulness, which is more a practice of being present in the moment. He explains meditation that is purely quieting the body and the mind, observing your thoughts and restraining them to discipline and calm the intellect to focus it on God. Without this training, he says happiness is impossible. He says over time, this meditation makes a person strong, resilient, and impervious to stress. The training is difficult to master, but it is never lost. Even in death, you can pick it right back up again at the next level in a subsequent life. This meditation protects you from evil, and it becomes part of a continuous path of purification until you attain moksha, meaning union with God and freedom from the cycle of death and rebirth. So, In short, this chapter is about training and quieting the mind through meditation, rooting the mind in God, and offering all actions to God without fixating on money or rewards. That's it. He says a practitioner is a yogi, which he considers the highest and best kind of human that exists. As you listen to these verses, I invite you to ponder these questions. What are the primary benefits of meditation? How does meditation train the mind to be impervious to stress? What is the specific practice of meditation that Krishna describes? How does one do it? Do you have a meditation practice? How would you describe it, and how does it benefit you? What are your favorite quotes from this chapter to remember for life lessons? What parallel events in the modern world illustrate these concepts? Now, I will try to read the verses of chapter 6. The Supreme Lord said, "Those who perform daily duties without desire for results of their actions can truly be considered renunciates and yogis. Thus, they are more virtuous than those who have merely ceased all activity." What we call renunciate is no different from yoga, for no one can become a yogi without renouncing the biggest offender, worldly desire. To the soul seeking perfection in yoga, work without attachment is said to be the means. To the sage who is already established in yoga, tranquility in meditation is said to be the means. When one is neither attached to sense objects nor to actions, that person is said to be elevated in the science of yoga, having renounced all desire for the fruits of their actions. Elevate yourself through the power of your mind, and do not degrade yourself, for the mind can be the friend and also the enemy of the self. For those who have conquered the mind, it is their good friend. For those who have failed to do so, the mind is like an enemy. Yogis who have conquered the mind rise above the dualities of cold and heat, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor. Such yogis remain peaceful and steadfast in devotion to God. Yogis who are established in inner wisdom and have conquered their senses remain undisturbed in all circumstances. They see everything, dirt, stones, money, and gold, as all the same. Yogis look upon everything with an impartial intellect, well-wishers, friends, foes, wise and sinners alike. The yogi who is of equal mind toward friends, companions, and foes, neutral among enemies and relatives, impartial between righteous and sinful, is considered to be distinguished among humans. Those who seek the high state of yoga should live in a solitary place, constantly engaged in meditation with a controlled mind and body, eliminating desire and possession of sensory enjoyment. To practice yoga, one should create a sitting place in a sanctified area by placing grass, skin, and a cloth over each other. The sitting place should be neither too high nor too low. Seated firmly on it, the yogi should strive to purify the mind by focusing it in meditation with one pointed concentration to control all thoughts and activities. He must hold the body, spine, and head firmly in a straight line and gaze toward the tip of the nose, without allowing the eyes to wander. Thus, with a serene, fearless, and unwavering mind, rooted in a vow of celibacy, the vigilant yogi should meditate on me, having me alone as the supreme goal. Thus, constantly keeping the mind absorbed in me, the yogi of disciplined mind attains liberation from material bondage and abides in me in supreme peace. O Arjun, those who eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or too little cannot attain success in yoga. But those who are tempered in eating and relaxation, balanced in work and regulated in sleep, can mitigate all sorrows by practicing yoga. With thorough discipline, they learn to withdraw the mind from selfish desires and focus it on the greatest good of the self. Such persons are said to be in yoga and are free from all cravings of the senses. Just as a lamp in a windless place does not flicker, so the disciplined mind of a yogi remains steady in meditation on the self. When the mind, unrestrained from material activities, becomes still by the practice of yoga, then the yogi can see the soul through the purified mind and finds inner satisfaction. In that joyous state of yoga called samadhi, one finds supreme, boundless divine bliss, and once permanently established there, abides in eternal truth. Having gained that state, there is no greater attainment. Being thus established, one is not shaken, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. Yoga can be called that state of well-being that is far away from stress and unhappiness. One should practice yoga meditation resolutely, with an undeviating mind, free from depression. Completely renouncing all desires arising from worldly thoughts, one should use the mind to restrain sensory impulses from all sides. Slowly and steadily, with sacred determination and resolve of the intellect, the mind will become fixated in God alone and will think of nothing else. Whenever and wherever the restless and unsteady mind wanders, one should restrain and control it to bring it back to focus on God. Great transcendental happiness comes to the yogi whose mind is calm, whose passions are subdued, who is without sin, and who sees all imbued with God. With the self in union with God, a yogi becomes free from material contamination, and being constantly in touch with the Supreme, attains the highest state of bliss. True yogis, established in the Supreme Soul consciousness with God, see all living beings with equal eyes as reflections of God. To those who see me everywhere and see all things in me, I am never lost, nor are they ever lost to me. The yogi established in union with me, who sees me as the Supreme Soul in all beings, dwells only in me, although engaged in all kinds of activities. I regard as perfect yogis those who see the true equality of all living beings and respond to the joys and sorrows of others as if their own. Arjun said, "The system of yoga that you have described, O Madhusudan, appears impractical and unattainable to me due to my restless mind. My mind is very restless, turbulent, strong, and obstinate. O Krishna, it seems more difficult to control than the wind." Lord Krishna said, "O mighty-armed son of Kunti, what you say is correct. The mind is indeed very difficult to restrain. but by practice and detachment, it can be controlled. Yoga is difficult to attain for one whose mind is untrained. However, those who have learned to control the mind and who strive earnestly by the proper means can attain perfection in yoga. This is my opinion. Arjun said, "What is the fate of the lazy yogi who begins the path with faith, but does not endeavor sufficiently due to unsteady mind, and is unable to reach the goal of yoga in this life? Does not such a person who deviates from yoga get deprived of both material and spiritual success, Almighty armed Krishna, to perish bewildered like a broken cloud with no support on the path? O Krishna, please dispel this doubt of mine completely, for who other than you can do so?" The Supreme Lord said, "O Parth, one who engages on the spiritual path cannot meet with destruction either in this world or the world to come. My dear friend, one who strives for God realization is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogis upon death go to the abodes of the virtuous. After dwelling there for many ages, they are again reborn on the earth plane into a family of good and prosperous people. However, if they had developed dispassion due to a long practice of yoga, they are born into a family endowed with divine wisdom. Such a birth is very difficult to attain in this world. On taking such a birth, O descendants of Kurus, they awaken the wisdom of their precious lives and strive even harder toward perfection in yoga. Indeed, they feel drawn toward God, even against their will, on the strength of their past discipline. Such seekers naturally rise above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. With accumulated merits of many past births, when these yogis engage in great effort in further progress, they become purified from material desires and attain perfection in this life itself. A yogi is superior to an ascetic, superior to a person of learning, and even superior to those who offer rituals. Therefore, O Arjun, strive to be a yogi. Of all yogis, those whose minds are always absorbed in me and who engage in devotion to me with great faith, I consider them the highest of all.